this is James, and I'm here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting August 14th, 2017. This week I want to work with Lenormand, so the deck that is assisting me for this week's reading is a Piatnik Lenormand. It is one of the more traditional decks on the market. I like to think of it as an oldie but a goodie. So I have the deck on hand, and just as I do every week for these weekly general readings, I'm shuffling the cards with the intention of asking what do we need to know for the week ahead. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards and fan them out. And when I work with Lenormand, I like to do a line of 5, so I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. And these will be our cards for the week. And so now that I've picked those, I'm picking up the remainder of the deck. And we'll put that to one side. And when I read a line of 5, I always like to start with the middle card. The middle card for me represents the central issue for the week or what we're being asked to focus on. I also tend to look at it as a hinge card because it connects the 2 cards on the left and the 2 cards on the right. So looking at the middle card, we have cross. So cross is a card that can represent a burden or responsibility. So for some of us watching this video this week, we're being asked to focus on, what is it that we feel a sense of burden with, or carrying a lot of responsibilities this week. Cross is a card that can represent difficulties too. So this is a week that we may be asking to focus on our difficulties this week, or whatever it is that we deem being difficult. The other thing about cross, when I read it, I tend to look at this card as having to do with religion and spirituality. So for some of us, and maybe that will be the thing that's going to help us with our burdens and our difficulties this week, is leaning on whatever it is that we consider to be of spiritual support to us, right? So I tend to look at this as we may be moving through situations that seem very critical, or that they seem like a crisis or an ordeal. That goes with the burden and difficulty aspect of the card. And one of the things that could carry us through is having that sense of faith. So I'm seeing that with cross. Cross again can represent burdens and difficulties. It could also represent something that's going on that seems like it's critical, or that we're feeling like we're being tested. Life gives us tests, so this could be a test, or it seems like a testing time period for us. But one of the things that could help us get through is our sense of faith, tied to our religion and our spirituality, whatever that is, because each of us is walking a different spiritual path. So again, that's what I see with cross. So now that's reading the cross by itself, or the card by itself, I should say. Lenormand is best read in combination, so now we will take a look at the surrounding cards because they will give us more information about this particular central issue or focus. So going with the cards from left to right, we have house. Between house and cross, we have tree. On the other side of cross, we have garden. And then rounding out the line, we have stork. Okay, so when I work with a line, what I do is after we look at the middle card, I go one step out and we take a look at the cards that are immediately flanking the center card. So on the card on the left, like I said, it was tree. So a tree represents healing and represents health. So that could be the burden or the difficulty for some of us watching this video this week. We could be facing a health challenge or a health crisis, or that focusing on our health is critical and necessary right now. If I pair tree with cross, because I tend to look at cross as something that's not only critical but also necessary. So some of us watching this video, it could be very important that we take a look at our health. this week. The other thing here with this card, it could also be, like I said, about healing in addition to health. So if we pair cross and tree, we get the combination of a spiritual healer or a spiritual healing. So somebody could be moving into the sphere of doing more with their spiritual healing work or practice. If that's the case, tree is giving you the heads up, the encouragement to branch out. I tend to look at this because tree represents something that's rooted. So the roots are there, the foundation is there. Now you may be at the point in your work or practice, it's about branching out. And the 7 of Hearts, which is the playing card insert for me, always carries a sense of developing connections. So it's about you are being called to branch out with this work. So that would be for some people watching this video, because everybody might not be a spiritual healer who lands on this, but if you are, you're being asked to branch out. And the other thing about this, if you are embarking on that work, if you are wanting to put your practice out there, tree is a card that represents growth and development. It represents something that grows and develops over time. So you need to be patient, right? So there's a play on that. So it could be patience in the sense of waiting and developing patience, but it could also be patience, meaning your clients that you're going to be working with. That's going to be twofold. And you'll have more clients when you put yourself out there more and branch out. So I'm looking at that. Now, it could be for other people watching this video, and it's very interesting because we have another card that I'm going to get to later that kind of will go along or go hand in hand with this to some degree. I tend to look at tree as about one's family tree, right? So family tree can represent extended family, right? So there may be something having to do with extended family that may become critical or necessary, or we're feeling burdened by extended family or a situation that's involving extended family members. So I'm seeing that as a possibility. The other thing, and this is just me being personal, but this is me, so I know that sometimes when I share personal information, I do it with the idea like I may not be the only person who is going through this particular thing. So we talked about cross being about religion and spirituality, right? So right now for me in my own personal spiritual practice, I have been called to start studying Kabbalah. And the reason why I'm mentioning Kabbalah is because the tree in that regard can be the tree of life, right? So there's some work that I'm doing around Kabbalah or Kabbalah. There's, a couple of different ways of saying that. And a lot of the work right now that I'm doing is focusing on the tree of life. So since I'm going through that my own personal experience with that, that may be relevant to somebody else watching this video this week. So again, tree can represent health and healing. That's the first go-to I'm going with. So it could be healing something, could be saying to now's the time. It's important, it's critical for someone watching this video to be focusing on their health and their healing, right? It could also be like you are healing from more traditional religions or spirituality in the past. There may be some work you're doing. If you're exploring your spirituality at this point in time, there may be some healing that you might need to do as a result of something that you experienced in the past connected to that. So there's that aspect of it. Somebody is embarking on spiritual healing work. You are being called to branch out with the understanding that as you branch out, it's going to take time for that work to grow and develop. And then the last thing could be maybe healing a situation that involves extended family members, because again, it's critical to do that at this point in time. And if we go with the idea that cross represents spirituality, it could be suggesting too, like that healing process, regardless of the form it takes. I've talked about it in the form of family, but whatever the healing takes, whatever form that takes, it could be something that's part of your bigger spiritual growth and development. So those are my takes on tree with cross. And so now going to the other side here, we have garden. Garden is a card that with tree, remember I talked about tree being extended family, right? So garden in that regard can represent other people, right? This card usually represents groups. It could represent communities, things of that nature. So it could be like groups of other people. So it could be saying too, like that could be like people healing a situation with people that seems like maybe these people are like family. They may not be blood, but they could be like family. So I'm seeing that. Now again, for the person who is embarking on maybe growing and developing their spiritual healing practice, This card is very positive because I talked about branching out, and then the other side of this would be you need to be out there in the community. Only way people are going to know about you, right? So you got to get yourself out there. You got to be on the scene to be seen, right? Because this card can represent public spaces, social gathering places, things of that nature. So it could be one way to branch out, could be like, who's my audience, right? You know, I love talking about business, right? And growing your business. And one of the things is with garden, it's about who is my audience? And you need to be out there where those people are. So there's that. Now, for someone watching this video, it could be, you know, they're working on healing work within a group or community because Cross would say it's reached a crisis point. Whatever's going on in the community could be reaching a crisis point, and it's critical and necessary that this healing work takes place, right? So again, garden represents social activity, groups of people being out and about, you know. So again, if you are doing healing work, you know, spiritual healing work, you may be wanting to get yourself out there more, finding out who your target market is, your target demographic, who your audience is, and be where they are. Again, this could also be about doing some healing work within a group of people, because now's the time. It's critical and it's necessary. It's a much needed work at this point in time. And I'm tending to think with garden as representing other people in groups and communities, you know, this could be also too like society. And if you're like me and you watch the news and you see what goes on in the world, we all know that the world could use a lot of healing at this point in time. So if you're feeling called to do that work, we need you. We need you out there doing it. So that's garden. Now moving to the card on the far left, we have house. So now the interesting thing about this is we have house, which can represent family, one's home, that kind of thing. So the nuclear family, right? And then tree, which was right next to it, could represent extended family. So there may be something having to do with people that you live with, people that you share living space with, because that's my first go-to with house. It's about people who share the same living space or who all live under the same roof. So there's that. It could also be, too, the idea about maybe balancing the needs between your own personal family, the family that you live with, and the needs of external family, extended family, with the tree being right next to it. Now again, this could be, you know, if we're looking at what's going on out in the world and we want to do some work around that, you know, if we're feeling called to do some healing work with what's going on outside of our house, outside the home, sometimes, spiritually speaking, we're being asked to take a look at what's going on in our own house first. You know, I'm being reminded of the idea of physician heal thyself, that adage. So sometimes before we take ourselves out into the world, do healing work out there, maybe now's the time to take a check. You know, just make sure if there's any healing work that we need to do for ourselves first. Now, for the person who is embarking on being seen more, becoming more visible, this card would encourage you to consider the idea of being comfortable being out in public. I'm just feeling like, because this card for me can represent comfort, and I'm feeling like for somebody that may be a challenge, being out, especially if you're shy or introverted. I tend to be a very shy, introverted person, so this took a lot of work for me to be able to do weekly videos on camera and putting them out on YouTube, because I'm very introverted. I tend to really like working with people one-on-one, so this is a new experience for me, so I'm seeing elements of that. So somebody else could be going through the same idea about putting themselves out there more in a more public way. So there's that. So the idea here is about being comfortable with that. The other thing about house is about laying a foundation. So this could be like before you branch out and before you go public, you might want to get your house in order and lay a foundation that's going to help you best get your business and yourself noticed. So I'm seeing that with house. Now, at the end of the line, this is a great card. This is Stork. So Stork is about wanting to create change. This is about change for the better. It's about improvements, you know, that kind of thing, positive energy. So at the end of the line, this is great. So it could be saying too, if we really take the time to do the work, the healing work, because I'm feeling like tree and cross are the pivotal cards this week in this line. If we are willing to take the time to do whatever healing we need to do, whether it's for ourselves or for other people or with other people, because you can't do healing work for other people. They have to be a part of the process. They have to want it just as much as you do, right? You can't want it more for them. And that's the only way healing takes place, is when everybody collectively agrees to that process, right? So there's that. But if that all falls into place, Stork is a wonderful card to see at the end of the line because it represents change and improvement, right? So on that note, I will end and round out this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and as I close for the week, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again for our next reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.